Hey there! Today's 5-minute tutorial is one of the most commonly asked questions that I receive both on social media and from my clients, and that is about marbled fondant. Now, marbled fondant is very much on trend, as they say, but it's also one of the easiest techniques that you can do with your fondant. I personally actually think it's kind of like a lazy technique because it's basically mixing colour into fondant but not doing a very thorough job. So I'm going to show you very quickly how you can marble your fondant for your cakes and your cookies and things like that. So I'm just starting with a little bit of, I've got some white fondant. Good thing is to use gloves especially when you're working with different colours, so that you don't get hands that are stained. Mine are already a little bit stained. Now there's two different ways that you can marble fondant depending on the colour that you want to use. If you're going to go for a sort of like a quite natural stone sort of marble look, then I'd suggest using just some pre-coloured black fondant, which I have here, which I keep obviously in a bag. But you can also use just straight colours. So if you were going to do a different coloured marble, a green or a blue, or look, I've got an orange here. You can also use the colours directly from your gel bottles. And they have the same effect. It just depends on the colour and the intensity that you're looking for. But I'm going to do just a normal marble. So I've got some of my white fondant and I'm going to be using some of the black fondant. And I'm just going to put some gloves on to keep my hands from getting covered in gel colour. And the amount of colour that you add into your white fondant will vary depending on how intense you want that marble look to be. So I'm not using very much white fondant today, so I'm only going to use a little bit of black fondant, and I can work in extra bits as I need to. So quite simply, I've got my white fondant and I've got a little bit of black. And if I wanted to have a couple of different variations of the greys and blacks that are going through my fondant, I can also get an extra bit of my white, and I can knead that black into it and give myself another variation on the grey. So I'm going to have my white, I've got a dark grey, and I've got a straight black. And all I'm going to do with my fondant is I'm going to add bits of my grey and my black into the fondant. And same thing with the black. And I'm going to knead it through until I start to get a bit of a streaking effect happening in my fondant. So you can see already that by kneading just those little bits of grey and a little bit of black into my white, I've got quite a strong marble texture happening in there on both sides. And when I'm working with it, I can knead it around and manipulate it as I want to. If I want those really strong grey marks coming through, I can push them into the fondant a bit more, like that. Don't need my gloves anymore. And then all I would do from here, dust my surface down, and I can now roll that out. And I have there a great piece of dark, almost slate coloured marble fondant. And the great thing also about marbled fondant is if I find that that's a bit too dark, if I turn it over, I have a completely different look on the other side. And that's where, as I said, you can vary the amounts of greys that you use. If you want a very soft marble without too much, like quite a light sort of texture, you can make just a little tiny bit of grey and just work little bits of grey into there. If you want it really dark, as I did with the really dark grey and the black, and you've got yourself a different marble texture every time. And if I'm doing a big piece, I'll be ready to cover a cake, or I can cut out my cookie shapes and put them onto my cookies for some marbled cookies. Have fun marbling!